Morning, Breakfast Clubbers!
Morning!
All right, we didn't. I don't think we sang last week, so maybe we have to do 2 songs.
Yeah, we sang. Yeah,
Hail, hail, gang's all here. Morning, Breakfast Clubbers. Morning, Breakfast Clubbers. Chow, chow. We all want chow. That is what we're here for now. See, I was waiting for you guys to do the chow part, man. You didn't. Every time you always did the chow part. You know, that was one thing. The Future Freedom Foundation, Bumper Hornberger and Sheldon Richmond went to here on Scottsdale Road somewhere up on Shea. There's a resort that usually had a lot of conservatives. They had their events up there, and they gave a good presentation. And he talked about in the 90s how he used to frequent and come speak at the Arizona Breakfast Club, talking about Harry Everingham and so on, which was good nostalgia. Everybody be careful of this cable here. So Arizona Breakfast Club's been around a long time, over 40 years. So this has been, now I just talked to the owner of this facility, the gentleman that runs it, manager, and then the weekend kind of manager is the woman I was talking to out here, attractive young lady out here. She was his wife and worked here as a manager on the weekends. Well, she just told me that they cut dinner service here. You know, they changed the name, went to off one franchise, trying to get it down, kind of trying to save it. So then they stopped dinner service, and she lost her job. She, I don't know, sleeping with the boss doesn't count, I guess. So what happens is, this is just indicative of a lot of other things that are happening. The economy is it's changing. There's a lot of stuff changing. We just had, I was on the way over here, right before I left, I was listening to Kane, Glenn Jacobs, Kane the wrestler, on doing a radio show with Lou Rockwell. And they were talking about the new internet tax that's coming on. And what it is that I don't think it's new so much as they're starting to enforce it. And this is going to get worse and worse and worse. And they're going to come at you more and more. We were at the Prepper Fest event here in Scottsdale, North Scottsdale, last weekend. How many people stopped by that? With Prepper Fest AZ at prepperfestaz.com. They're going to do another one in November. It's their first one. And it was put on by a gentleman, Tony Tanglio, I think that's how he says it. And he spoke here a couple of months ago, or a few months ago. He came in and announced that they were going to do it. Thousands of people went. And I saw something. For the first time, any of these kind of events where we had the Valley Permaculture, left-leaning, socialist, progressive, government good people over here, and the Tea Party, prepping, survival, oath-keeping over here, and they overlapped. And they had the same interest. And they were all shocked of how we knew everybody on both sides. So I go, for you to say, what the hell are you guys anyway? I mean, so they just didn't understand, that we're going to the private party and chilling with Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers, and then we're like bestest buddies with Urban Farm. And the thing is, and then they find out that senior editor, Pal Gamble, is a permaculturalist that got his training from the progressive guys. And they're just like, they don't know what to do. They don't know what category to put us in. And the thing that I'm trying to explain to them, we gave away a bunch of free access to different things on the site and so on. The one thing that I wanted to make sure they understood, the economy, eating, living, food, and communication, ham radio thing, we're really pushing. I had a lot of these guys all week on the show talking about the new direction that Freedom Phoenix is going to be doing. And we've been talking about it over the past couple of months. We're going to double down on the love. This is what's happening. My article in this month's e-zine that went out last night went something like this. Here we go. What we're doing on the side of our yard where we had a garden, we're having an aquaponics system that's going to be put in two of our geodesic domes that we're marrying, that doorway that we have, we're linking them together and have a double dome. Okay? We have just a place for there to do it. Now, any of you, how many of you have been to my home, the water feature, you kind of, in the backyard, that kind of waterfall thing? There is a big pond that probably could hold 1,500 tilapia.
Drive all this way and
So I'm sick and tired of that thing. Donna likes it because, you know, she gets to hear the waterfall. Okay, it's outside of our bedroom window, and that's why somebody's wife put it there. Okay, so then we have, so it's just, you know, whatever. But you know, it's always kind of, you know, you got to treat it all. It's like the pool, man. It's just a pain. It's a bigger pain in the butt. And all of a sudden, she gave me permission, if there was some way I can get the waterfall to work still, you can have as many freaking crocodiles as you want. So what we're doing is we're having the geodesic domes that we're going to be building this coming Saturday. I'm getting everything ready this week. And then you guys, if you went to the Prepper Fest or you went to the Jackalope Freedom Festival or something, you remember a guy named Leo and his family that raised Japanese quail. Japanese quail, they're a delicacy, and the eggs are all great. We've got to have it, you know, in Oriental countries in Taiwan, Philippines, got to have their quail eggs. Well, they started doing this. They wanted to know what kind of a meat animal, rabbits, you know, some kind of bird or something, that they could raise and harvest as fast as possible to supply their meat, because they're wanting to get off grid. Japanese quail, thousands of years, it's been bred. It can't live in, you know, out of captivity. It has to be caged, because it's like goes up and starts, you know, playing with wolves or something. So what you would take this animal, in 4 to 6 weeks, it starts laying eggs. You got a little chick, a month and a half later, it's laying eggs. I go, how's that even freaking possible? Breeding, okay? So they have 250 to 300 pounds of birds all the time. They started selling them on Craigslist and these different, you know, Chinese restaurants and so on. Also business. Their kids go out and take care of them. So we're going, okay, so they were at the Prepper Fest showing the cage and how their system and how they do this, and, you know, kind of promoting that. So he needs to expand. He needs more room. I need to make some geodesic domes, Ernie. I saw your thing up at Jackalope Freedom Festival. I mean, damn, let's do it. Anyway, here's the page. You can go Google Money Dome. Google Money Dome. Mark, don't worry about it. Take a Quaalude. So, yeah, Mark's like, hey, I'm here, man. What the hell? Why is anybody else talking? So what happened is that he's going to come over Saturday and help me build another dome, because he wants one, so we're going to have a total of 3 and he gets one. In the meantime, the aquaponics guys that were there, one of them, the food system guy, I had him on the show Monday. I had the biodiesel guy making biodiesel from algae. I had a guy called Excalibur, is a product, and find out he has a whole bunch of other stuff, you know, bug out trailers, motors, all kinds of stuff. He is one of the faces on Doomsday Preppers. He's in North Phoenix up there by the 101, and he came up with a system called Excalibur. And what it is inserts for your 12-gauge shotgun that allow you to shoot any caliber. 30-06, 308, 223, 9mm, 38 special, 357, 22. You just take these cylinders and it goes right into the 22, and you use a break open, you know, shotgun, breaks open, put that in there, get your single shot, put your 22 in there, boom. I got every caliber rifle. You're my new best friend. So we had him on for that. Dr. Frank Tamburri is the one that told me about it. Comes to find out, he knows the aquaponic guy. He's getting him on Doomsday Prepper. They're filming this Thursday through this weekend. It's going to be aired this fall. The aquaponics guy, the Doomsday Prepper, Excalibur with a bunch of other stuff guy, the biodiesel guy, I hooked them up. They went and met Wednesday, I think. And all of a sudden, for the filming of the Doomsday Prepper, they're putting the biodiesel algae thing in line with the aquaponics. Why? Because the aquaponics makes algae. So you go, okay, so I can get diesel along with my food? Yes. Probably not on the same plate, but you know, yes. So we're taking that system The aquaponic system, they're going to help us and put it all together. We have the geodetic place to put it in the pond and all that stuff. We're going to install that a week from Monday. Have it all ready. We get the biodiesel along with it. We're going to have a thing called the HOPE system, and it's H2OP, water, purification, and energy. He created this about the size of one of these tables, and about this high, and it has reverse osmosis, 2 pumps in it, all runs on solar, ultraviolet, alkaline, and it's the entire, because he owned the water purification system in Las Vegas. And he goes, so really, if you bug out, one thing you're going to need water. But the problem is that the real good water that you need, you have to have pressure to purify it. So he had to create a solar system, and then enough power that he goes, well, hell, I got a whole bunch of extra power. Might as well be a power system too. So we're going to run the entire aquaponic biodiesel system on his power system that he's installing with it. This is the future of Freedom's Phoenix in the easy. We've been planning this for 2 months. We are going to detail to our subscribers the ability for us to be able to produce our own food. Then what? Big side, one lot that we have on our property there is like a 1/4 acre big rectangle. What we're going to do is once a month we're going to have harvesting of all our stuff, and all the permaculture guys come in, they get their own little thing going on, and we just open up the double gates on the road there where we are, 51st and Greenway, and Port-au-Prince there. They just drive on in, and we're going to have a barter station. It's going to be, first thing you do, cash in all that paper money for silver dimes. Then you go, how much does it cost? I don't know, $2, 20 cents. So the man comes and wants to tax us, what are they going to tax us on? See my point? 20 cents, U.S. currency. You know, it's a dozen eggs for 1 silver dime. Now, of course, we're not going to be advertising come tax us, but sooner or later, that's what's going to happen. Sooner or later, they're going to come, we got to tax that food, man. You're like exchanging like food. Where's our cut? I already see where this goes.
All right, I'll give you a couple.
In June 2002, we filed an initiative in the city of Phoenix that they can't do internet tax. Transactions on the internet, they won't be able to tax it. Ernie, we're not going to do that yet. I knew they were going to do it. Well, now they're starting to do it. Here it comes. So what I want to do is we're going to take Freedom's Phoenix and we're going to start being more about the love. We're going to take and create a package that Donna and I are going to be able to be an inspiration and other people use it. It's going to be formatted to where, because it's digital, you can have as long a page as you want. We're going to make all the pages to where it prints out as a PDF, front, back. You can print out the entire thing, hard copy yourself in addition to be able to do your electronic devices. But it's so that, and the whole theme is love your neighbor. We're going to go across the street, down the street, our entire street, introduce ourselves with this package. This is who we are. This is what we're doing. Please add your whatever to us. You know, you need anything, ask any questions, we got, here it is, boom. We're going to save our dog. Oh, you don't know what that means? Okay, let me tell you what it means. I am of the opinion it's going to get bad enough that we need to love our neighbor whether I love them or not. Love as a verb. We are going to love our neighbor. I'm a big hugger. Everybody know I'm a hugger. That's just like, you know, your aura shall share with mine. All right? Because I love people. Especially you and you and you. So what happens is we're going and we're saying, look, I know things are going to get bad and I want to make sure that you don't starve. There's no reason for you to go hungry. There's no reason for you, I mean, look what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and you want to do it, do it. And we go, and it's all about, because when you get hungry, you're going to come and kill my dog. So it's all about me saving my dog. So the thing is that, am I being altruistic? Am I being a good little, you know, progressive commie, we're all in it, kind of make you, you know, work with me and help me plow my field so I can whatever and supervise or something? No. I'm going to love my neighbor as we are commanded in about every freaking language, you know, and every culture and everything. They see the benefit of humanity, of being excellent to each other out of self-preservation. It is a selfish act for me that I love my neighbors. Think about it. Oh, you went hippie. No.
kind of like my dog. So it's a selfish act, and I make it very clear. No, I'm doing this out of self-preservation, because if I don't build that insulation and share what we know and all the stuff with our battery project and our food projects and all these guys, of course, are interested in this. And after the program today at noon, we're meeting in Mesa. It's on Freedom's Phoenix, a hacker space there. It's called HeatSync. One of the things when I'm doing my battery project, I've got to the point now that I need an electron microscope and some analysis of some of the products that I'm doing. I'm really getting to where I can make a lot of good stuff. But I need to analyze it. I go to the ASU looking for the nanotube professor, and what do they say? They go, well, I'm the nanotube guy because I got a grant to be able to, analyze and search for naturally occurring carbon nanotubes in nature. I'm sitting here analyzing leaves for the environment. Oh, so you're totally worthless. Okay. So, why nano? Who's the nano? Well, U of A is doing a little bit more nanotube, kind of whatever, this one company that supplied it. I go, all it is, they just got a contract with somebody that actually brings in the nanotubes from somewhere else they don't even know, that sells them to them. That's it? That's all you have? Screw you, there's got to be somebody else doing this. There's not. So I start looking for, these hacker spaces. There are places just like gyms that you pay $60, $100 a month for you to go in to a facility that'll be 3, 5, 8,000 square feet of just computer guided milling and plasma cutters and electronics and all, and computers and all sitting there. One girl there, we're going to go there and we'll talk about this afternoon. One girl, how I managed her to my new best friends. This young girl from ASU is learning to mill and build and everything because she's making and building her own electron microscope. Cool. This is what I'm talking about. Generation Next are not waiting. 3D printing, they don't care. Right now, Cody Wilson just came out yesterday, last couple of days, he 3D printed a gun. Fully operational handgun, done. Bang. I win. Well, we got to have a law. Of course you do. See my point? And he sends me the file for an AR-15 30-round magazine that is printable that says Safe Gun Owners on it with our logo. Okay? So don't think that I don't get it. All right? I get it. But we have to marry it with the generation, not just next, but the older generation that are waiting or willing to do this. But I tell you, what have I been saying for 20 years? I'm just waiting for the older guys to all just die off. Seriously. The next generation, they're not going to be sitting there trying to convince you. They're going, yeah, but it's going to, and we need, because I feel, and you got to have government to something. Seriously? They aren't even thinking about it. Oh, you think they're going to go get an account so they can pay taxes on their bitcoins? I mean, it's not going to happen. So we're, tip of the spear, but it's not just us. There are people just like us, organizations, groups, activists that we know that are doing it in Georgia, Austin, Texas, Wyoming, Washington State, Montana, and New Hampshire and Pennsylvania. And Missouri, Tim, then he's writing for the stuff right now that we know of, and we haven't even got started yet. This month's magazine is this prelude to what's coming next month. We are going to be the tip that Freedom's Phoenix. The rebirth of freedom from the ashes of Lady Liberty's torch. That's what that logo means. And we haven't even started yet. This, beginning of June, this is the beginning of what we were prepping Freedom's Phoenix for the past 7+ years. This is it. Here we go. And everybody goes, and my last line in the article I wrote, are you ready to change the world again? What do you think the Levolution was? Everybody goes, oh, Ernie, that'll never happen. Why do you guys, yeah. I get it. My favorite is Alan Corwin. Oh, no, never. And then 2 years ago, oh, I've never said that. I mean, it's just the way it is. But, so the thing is that, a lot of people, they doubt. So then what we find now, the other thing is ham radio, satellite communications. This stuff is going, I finally found that one guy, ham radio, it'd be a few weeks before we get him on because of our schedules, but he's going to help us out. You can do over the airwaves with private ham radio operating and do texting, email. Totally encrypted, totally off, without anything, boom, done. We knew that back in the mid-90s. Dean and I, we were talking about this 20 years ago. we're waiting for it, and now it's, I'm like, bad guys have no idea. They can't even comprehend it. They don't even understand. Yeah, we know this guy's a node of the girl like everybody. As soon as I know something, we got to take out 5,000 of my closest friends and subscribers now. Now what? I mean, there's nothing that's going to stop what's coming. I want to give, at the end, Von Trude, we'll go ahead and do this at the end of the presentation because freaking Mark will have a heart attack. So, go ahead and just stand up real quick and promote your book. 2 minutes he's going to do.
Right now?
Go.
Yes, okay.
2 minutes. Tick, 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 tick. Mark's freaking, man.
Yeah, I thought I was going to do this afterwards. Sorry, Mark. My name is Von Troide. This is my book, Centrifugal Force. It is a sci-fi novel, near future America. America is becoming totalitarian. Big surprise. The theme involves a bunch of hackers and computer nerd types who are using technology to fight back against tyranny. The central character, Joel Walter, is wanted for a crime he did not commit. The only way he can communicate with his comrades is through anonymous, secure encryption. This technology morphs into another technology, which in the book is called e-bar, trade anonymously over the internet. And a lot like Bitcoin, and I don't like to brag, but I conceived this before Bitcoin came about. But anyway, because anonymous transactions are not taxable, the feds are naturally not happy with this, and a lot of action ensues from there. So my book is available on Amazon, ebook $5.95, physical book $12.95. I've got some with me today. If you're interested, $10 special. And also check out my blog, vontroide.com. It's called the Sci-Fi and Sedition blog, and it's spelled Von like in Vince, Troide like Sigmund Freud with a T and an E on the end. Thank you.
So you want to know how this can get your imagination sparked and doing it, read the book. I mean, this is not new. We've been waiting for the older people to die off. Seriously, you guys thinking and I'm not talking except present company excluded. Because the thing is that remember 20 years ago when I was coming to the Breakfast Club, I was facing a generational lock. You had been brainwashed into, ooh, America! Oh, I'm supposed to do it like this now, okay? So I mean, it's just, this is, I call them MKers, America, America, America. Oh! Holy shit, I bet you guys don't even know this. I thought it was a spoof. Just like when they did the Total Information Awareness logo, the all-seeing eye looking down on the earth, I go, no, it's DARPA. They actually came up with this logo. Total Information, we rule everybody. This is like 02, 03, I was going, are you freaking kidding me? That's real? Well, that's what started with the trash can flyer, why we use that logo in butt heads. Scares the crap out of people, okay? I've been getting calls. We did the Prepper Fest. We had a bunch of them out. I got a bunch of calls this week. People were giving them to their butthead neighbors or something. You come on my property, I'm an AR, shit. I'm going, all that stuff's true. Nobody went through your trash. It was put on after it was empty, and it's just to get you all nutted up. Why are you all nutted up? I go, I did 25 years, serve my country. I said, you know what's interesting to me? I mean, we got to talking a little bit, and I said, the thing that's interesting to me, I'll bet you were one of the guys saying you didn't have anything to hide, didn't you? Didn't you? Yeah, we need to do all of y'all, ooh, okay? And I go, and when that's on your trash can, all of a sudden you didn't like it none too much, did you? And that feeling, and you knew by going through and you find, to get my email, to get my phone number, you had to have understood there that we were just jerking with you. It just pissed you off, didn't it? That is what you're making everybody else feel. How is it? So we're going to stop doing that kind of thing. We're going to do, because I want to embrace the love. It was all about trying to convince people how bad it is. I don't need to convince them anymore. Now, them days is over. It's like I'm wasting my time. It's like in a tsunami swimming. Being the town crier. Tsunami's coming. Tsunami's coming. If you're bowling over people. Why? Get in a boat or something. Okay. So this is what's going on. But I'll tell you what just happened. I couldn't believe it. President Obama has declared Allegiance Day. You guys know about this?
That was May 1st.
Yeah. off of White House, off of the White House, contacted it, I think. Is it a spoof?
No.
It came off the White House. I'm going, you're kidding me, right? I don't know. I hope it's just, I don't know either way what difference to make. They're thinking it anyway.
Ernie, it's not just Obama. The executive order is new, but the executive order references Public Law 85-whatever, which was from the 85th Congress. We're talking about before the Freedom of Information Act. Okay? We're talking about...
Is it true?
The law exists, yeah. But the executive order exists. But the executive order is based on a congressionally enacted law from back in 59...
That created a day.
Yeah.
Okay. It is Loyalty Day for the United States. You better freaking be standing there. It's like watching old Nazi films with people on the sideline with the flags going like this.
I think we just came up with the 4th of July.
So you have to understand this is the world that we're living in, and what do? We amp it up. We start walking perimeter. We give everybody guns. I'm gunned up. We're good. But the thing is, and I go, is that really the answer? No. There's no, way to peace. Peace is the way. This Gandhi thing, this love thing. My neighbor is going, you put a daisy in their gun barrel and give them a big wet one. We're past this. If we don't start combating the hate and the fear and this tyranny and everything with love, it will ratchet out of control and it won't benefit any of us. So we're going to this Freedom's Phoenix. This is what I've been building up. That's why it's always about the love and all that kind of stuff. It's not because I love these guys. It's a verb. It's a weapon. I love these guys. And we're going to demonstrate it. Because if you can't get your mind around that, you lost already because you turned into what they want you to be. They need you to be violent. They need you to do stuff. Mark Victor is from Boston. His brother Scott has his own criminal defense attorney practice in the Boston area. He wanted to be, I want to be the attorney for the Boston bomber guy. Why? We're going to find out what really happened. So we're working on that, and you got another attorney that's taken that on, big name, and her whole focus is to stop the death penalty. I don't want them to die. How many, what do you want them to say? Here's some strings to them. It's just, are we going to find out what really happened? Does America even really care? They're just like, I don't believe the damn thing they say anyway. So what happens? We find out, I said, I always go 3 weeks. I don't say a damn thing till 3 weeks. Ernie, what do you think about it? 3 weeks, which is this coming week. We start finding out. The guy's uncle that came out, oh yeah, I can't believe it. He was married to a CIA operative that was doing blah, 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 blah. Seriously, you can't make this stuff up. So I'm going, this is, and the school that they went to be all ragtime and everything was funded and created by the CIA. It just goes on and on and on. 3 weeks. The only truth that comes out of something like this usually is in the first hour and after 3 weeks. Everything else is just bullshit, okay? So I'm just going, yeah, peace. I don't even want to talk about it. 3 weeks. So Donna's working on, we'll get Sibel on the show again. She had a lot of interesting things. Because what happens? Think about it. While all this is going on, we sent troops into Jordan to start going into Syria. We just have, news breaks that Israel is launching attacks into Syria, airstrikes. Then what happens? Who's behind them? Russia. Russia's like, are you sure you want to play this game with our warships sitting in the Black Sea and kind of whatever? Well, if we have a guy that bombs Boston that happens to be from Chechnya, then we get to go into Syria, you get to about Chechnya without us bugging you. See my point? Can't make this stuff up. 3 weeks. And all this stuff starts to come out. Because everybody else goes speculate. You're just playing their game. You're just, the strings are going like, oh, look over, whoa, shiny objects, whoa. With 3 weeks. I learned that from Ben Sopranos. He goes, man, you don't even nothing for 3 weeks, and then you write a book, and then you get the real story. But that's never what the narrative is. They insert the narrative, and you play along. Stop. We're going to let Mark have the rest of his time. Because his whole thing is a different perspective on this from the inside of how it works. And we've seen him on TV a lot. And Wazit and him and Tracy are making sure that I see it a lot. Links of him on TV all the time. What do you think, Mark, about this? I don't know. Whose butt are you kissing at all of these television stations? How is this working? He can tell us all about it. Mark Victor, I partner in the Freedom Summit. Oh yeah, I scheduled Freedom Summit. We're going to do it President's Weekend mid-February. Already got a bunch of speakers and everything. I probably should tell you about that. I wouldn't. Mark Victor.
We have a deal, you're supposed to lower this down for me. There we go. I think it's interesting how Ernie and I, we haven't really been hanging out very much lately. He's been busy, I've been busy. But we're both kind of, I'm about ready to say heck with this. You guys hear me okay? How about now?
You want it so they can fix it for
Yeah, you
you.
need a mic.
I thought you were a Marine.
All right, so it's interesting because Ernie and I go through periods of time where we spend a lot of time together and we're doing exactly the same thing. And then we go through periods of time where we don't see each other for months. But it always seems like we're just tracking along the same track no matter what, whether we're talking or not. Because I've noticed Ernie in the last, 20-something years since I've known him. And it's a good story all unto itself. If you're hanging out with us sometime on the weekend, we'll tell you the whole story of how me and Ernie met. Incidentally, it's two different versions depending on who's telling the story. But you know, I hear Ernie now talking so much more about love and about peace. And I like it. And I'm doing exactly the same thing. Independently, we're both, if some of you are on my emails, I'm amending them all with the word peace. Because, you know, at the end of the day, peace for me is really the goal. Peace is the goal. And I think there are lots of ways to get there. We talk a lot about freedom. Freedom is super important. I would say freedom is absolutely indispensable to peace. You cannot have freedom, you cannot have peace without freedom. It's absolutely important. The reason for that, of course, is if you don't have freedom, then what you have is people who are coercing each other. And that's certainly not peace. If you get freedom, at least what you've got now is people who are not coercing each other. Everybody's sort of in charge of themselves. But I don't want to stop there. I mean, even if we get freedom, and I would love to see it in my lifetime, I'll become a peace activist. I don't have any malice whatsoever to those people who are just talking about peace. I think that's fantastic. I like to remind them that we don't have freedom, and so we need to be talking about freedom. Before we can get peace, we got to have freedom. But anyways, I think that's, I'm glad Ernie's talking about peace, and I'm glad he's talking about love and all that stuff, because at the end of the day, that's what our crowd's about, really. Our crowd is about, there's really two groups, those who want to live in peace, who understand that in order to make that happen, we just can't coerce each other, and those who just want to pound and bash each other over the head to try to force other people to live in ways that they think are best. Those are the two groups, and that's it. There ain't no other groups out there. So today is one of the very few times I've come to speak, and I have absolutely nothing prepared. I got no notes, no pen, no piece of paper. This is just sort of miscellaneous ramblings, stuff that happens to be pissing me off at the moment. And I want to start with Jody Arias. Are you guys sick of seeing me about Jody? I'm kind of sick of it, right? But you know, they keep calling me, and it gives me an opportunity to say things. And now Channel 12 is saying, hey, Mark, we want you to be the legal commentator for everything that comes up, at least in the criminal side of things. And that's going to provide, I think, lots of opportunities to talk about all kinds of things that are wrong with the system, which is mostly what's wrong with the law. Our system isn't all that bad. The problem is the law is wrong. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's lots of things to fix about the system. But if you said, hey, Mark, you could either fix the system, the procedure that we have in terms of running a trial and all of that, or you get to fix the law, man, fixing the law is so much more important. But what's bugging me about Jody Arias is there's really nothing in this case whatsoever that is a novel legal question. Nothing at all. This is ordinary, from a legal perspective, an ordinary garden variety, run-of-the-mill, we have them every single day, self-defense kind of case. I mean, that's what it is, right? Somebody killed somebody else, and the question is, were they justified in that killing? And it's exactly the same things that I talk about at every Crossroads gun show in terms of, in fact, if you listen to the jury instruction, you heard Judge Stevens say exactly the same things I say every Crossroads gun show, self-defense and the use of deadly physical force. It's exactly the same. The manslaughter instruction, the second degree, the first degree, there's nothing special here. Either it was self-defense or it wasn't. And that, from a legal perspective, nothing ordinary, nothing special at all. But why is this thing such a high-profile, internationally famous? Because it's Jerry Springer-like. That's why. You insert for your normal, usual defendant a pretty young female with all the nice, pretty attributes that Jodi Arias has, and you insert lots of gory pictures and lots of sex, lots and lots and lots of very graphic, in-your-face, let's talk about all kinds of, for some people, off-the-beaten-path kinds of sex, man, that makes it exciting. And you sprinkle in a little bit of Mormonism in there, sex in the church, right? And all this stuff together, that's what makes it Jerry Springer-like. So we can crab and complain, as my mom would say, kvetch, all we want about the government, but I'm here to tell you, the government ain't the problem. The government isn't even real. Anyone ever meet the government? The government's just people. Just individuals. That's all it's about. There's people here, there's people there. Some of these people have a badge, a shiny badge. Some of them carry guns, and they happen to get to call themselves the government. But the government's not the problem, to be clear about it. It's the people. And it's the people, it's what they're interested in. They're camped out around the courthouse, pumped up about Jodi Arias. And I'm on TV and I'm talking about it and everybody's excited and it's the top story. And the second and the third and the fourth, it's all Jodi Arias. And it ain't shit about Eric Holder. Eric Holder. This should be the biggest story of the freaking century. This was the most outrageous statement in my life I have ever heard anybody in the government, involved, connected to the government, say. I heard the most shocking, the most outrageous, the most un-American, the most Nazi-like statement ever said by somebody in the government, and it wasn't the dog catcher. It wasn't some bureaucrat. It wasn't some uneducated, low-level, regulatory government, average government moron. This was the moron who happens to be the Attorney General of the United States. The chief top lawyer, the top person. Who knows how many, show of hands, how many people even know what statement I'm talking about? And this is why it's so sad. There's one statement out there that is so outrageous. This is what I'm going to talk about. If you heard my radio show, I played it 3 times. I couldn't believe he said it. But yet Jodi Arias is the top story, and nobody's even talking about what Eric Holder said. To give it a little bit of context before I tell you what the statement was, this is during the time that Ron Paul's son, Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul, was conducting that, what I would call, heroic filibuster about the drones.
Here, here.
He was up there and he was saying, hey, look, I just kind of like an answer to a question here. Do you think that the President of the United States, without anybody, can unilaterally, on his own, order the execution of an American citizen on American soil who is not posing an imminent threat to anybody. Like somebody sitting in a coffee shop, can the president just say, you know, go execute him? Is that constitutional? Before we move forward about this whole discussion and this confirmation process and all this stuff, do you think that's constitutional? I'd just like an answer to that. And in the context of that, Eric Holder talked about due process. And I think the reason this isn't a bigger statement is because people don't quite grasp the implication of this statement. I think this statement, before I tell you, is so big, if it's followed, it's to me the overthrow of civilization. It's that big. Here's what Eric Holder said. He said, well, you know, due process. The Constitution, it says due process. It does not say judicial process. It doesn't mean judicial, doesn't necessarily mean judicial due process. It just says due process. Now, first off, first observation here is he's exactly right about that. The Constitution, it just says due process. Your life, liberty, and property shall not be taken away without due process. It doesn't say judicial process, and it doesn't say judicial due process. So what does he mean by that statement? What's the implication? What's the importance of that statement? That statement. Due process is just Obama and a couple of his pals sitting around saying, I think, do you think we should kill him? Yeah, I think we should kill him. Should we kill him? Yeah, let's kill him. Now he's received due process. It does not have to go through the courts to be due process. So in other words, your life, your liberty, and your property. This is what Eric Holder, the chief lawyer in the United States, said. Your life, your liberty, and your property can be taken away constitutionally, perfectly consistent with the mandates of our Constitution, so long as you get non-judicial due process. What does that mean? Does that mean anything that Congress says? Let's just pass a law that says this or that, and hey, then you've had due process? Does that mean anything the president says? And who says it's got to be the president? What about some low-level bureaucrat knucklehead down in the city? What about some guy in the city council, or some guy who's in the city council? He says, yeah, me and the other guy in the city, we just decided to take your house away because whatever reason, you've had due process. You say, well, you can't do that. I'm entitled to notice in a hearing. Everybody understands due process, at least when I went to law school. Due process is generally understood, we call it procedural due process. Kielski could tell you about this. Procedural due process. At least you get notice in a hearing. Now, it's true. I don't know if they actually said hearing in front of a judge. But do you think the founding fathers, when they said your life, liberty, and property can't be taken away without due process, do you think they meant kind of like if the king decides to take it away, then it's okay, that's due process? It's shocking to me, this statement. Just to get your brain around how this statement would change everything about the legal system, everything about what it means to be an American. To get your head around that, this statement is the this statement is the complete overthrow of the entire legal system. It's the complete overthrow of the Constitution. You can throw everything else out, because if they can take away your life, your liberty, or your property without even a hearing in court, what else? Is there something else that matters? There's nothing else that matters. Question? It's true. I mean, it's true that we have things around the edges on that. There are things that shift the burden of proof. Like, for example, the IRS comes in and says, "Hey, you screwed up. Prove you didn't. We're taking all your stuff." It's true. But imagine if our whole criminal system, everything was without judicial due process. I mean, it's a shocking statement. But what was more shocking to me than that statement is why nobody seems to care about it. I'm here at the Breakfast Club, the people who are liking freedom, and I didn't get very many hands, and of the hands I got, not all of you were tracking with me on exactly what statement it was. And it's not your fault, because it received little to no attention. That's what's wrong with our country. That's what's wrong. That the top lawyer could make such an outrageous statement and it could slide right by while everybody's trying to figure out what kind of sex Travis and Jody had and how that may relate to a first-degree murder case. Question.
Isn't he the one that also might have said we need to make the laws fix the Constitution?
I didn't hear that.
Like that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
That goes along with what you're saying.
It was kind of like Mayor Bloomberg's statement last week that said, I don't remember exact quote, but it was kind of like we need to modify this whole Constitution thing.
People need to understand that the Constitution needs to be modified.
It needs to be modified because we can't get our plans through. This is the same guy who thinks that it ought to be against the law to drink a big sugary drink. Incidentally, I've been using this. I think this is a very good illustration between the difference between our crowd, the peace crowd, and their crowd, the war crowd. Because I agree with Bloomberg on this point, and I've said it many times. I really think that Bloomberg is onto something, and he's 100% correct when he talks about the dangers of these big sugary soda drinks. They are really bad for you. They're probably a lot worse for you than you even realize. Nobody should drink them. He's right about that. If he was standing, I'd give the guy a hug on that point. But when it comes to the second point, whether he gets to impose his particular judgment on you, I could smack him in the head. Say, hello? Maybe you must be confused. See, this is America, where people, first of all, they don't even have to be healthy if they don't want to be healthy. Who the heck are you to tell them they got to be healthy? Who are you? Tell them they got to be healthy. Can't they make a decision about that? Question.
Mark, I've purposely not been following the area's trial, so forgive my ignorance on this. Were you part of the defense team? And if not, do you know any of the attorneys that were on the defense team?
Question, was I part of the area's defense team? If not, do I know people? Answer, no, I'm not part of the area's defense team, but the more and more I've got involved in the trial, I sort of wish I was, because it looks like a really fun case to defend. Yeah, I know Kirk Nermy, I know Jennifer Wilmot, the two defense attorneys. Martinez, I know him, but I don't recall, we haven't had a trial together, he and I don't know if he and I have had a case together or not, I can't remember, but I know him, I've chatted with him, we're not friends or anything like that. I also know the judge, Sherry Stevens, very well. We had cases together back before she was a judge, and I think she's one of the better judges on the bench. Incidentally, I think that in our state where so much has occurred to make our state look so ridiculous to the rest of the nation, most of it justified, I think that this trial, by the way, actually reflects pretty well on the state of Arizona, because although it's a circus outside the trial, no fault of the judge or the lawyers or anything, I think that the way the trial has actually been conducted has been pretty good. I think that the judge has gone out of her way to allow a fair trial here. I think lots of this evidence came in. I think she's been very smart in trying to avoid appellate issues, like, for example, her instruction. I'm glad that she allowed it. I think a lot of judges may not have allowed it and said, hey, sorry, there's not enough evidence, and that would have been an appellate issue. But I think that the way this thing has been conducted, and keep in mind, just as an aside, the whole jury gets to ask questions of the witness. That is very rare. That didn't even exist at the time I started practicing. That came in the first few years I started practicing. I had I think the first trial in Yavapai County that had that issue in it, and then we were trying to figure out how this was going to work, how the questions are going to go, and all of that. And I think it's turned out to be really, really good idea. And the rest of the nation has seen us as one of only 3 states in the country that allow juries to ask questions of witnesses. I think it's gone really, really well. And Jody Arias got over 100 questions from the jury. So I don't see what the issue with that is. And to me, if the jury still got questions, they're the decision makers. They ought to get to ask questions. Question?
Mark.
Yeah, Mark. To Bloomberg. Do you think that he was thinking in terms of the way that he got around it in his own logic? He was thinking in terms of public trust?
I mean, I don't
on
know.
the cold drink.
Yeah, I can't get in the guy's head, but I think what's different between the way his head works and the way my head works is he thinks it's appropriate to be in a society where he makes a determination about what's good for other people, and it's okay for him to impose that decision on other people. I agree with this on this point about the sodas, which is why I think it's a good, I don't want people to be confused about that. I'm not arguing about with whether or not the sugary sodas are good or bad. I agree with them. They're bad. But, of course, all freedom people would oppose a law like that because other people have a right to live their lives however the hell they want so long as they're peaceful. And that's an American concept. That's what America is about. And so I don't think that his position is an American type of a position. Speaking of non-American type positions, I want to move into another area since the title of my talk is Miscellaneous Ramblings and stuff I'm pissed off about. I came up with something the other night and I want to run it by you. I did a show on my radio show. By the way, if you haven't heard my radio show and you're interested in hearing it, I think you can get it on Freedom's Phoenix. We post it there. You can get it at my website, which is Attorney for Freedom, or you can go to Dave Pratt's website, Dave from KUPD, still doing a show on what he calls the double wide network because KUPD was started in a double wide. And it's an internet radio station. If you go to Double Wide Network, you can hear Dave Pratt, the Morning Mayor, and you can hear the Attorney for Freedom show. And we just did a show on immigration. And I like talking about immigration because it's one of those issues that just pisses people off. And I'd be very frustrated if I didn't piss somebody off here this morning. So let me just tell you, I think I've solved this immigration problem. I think I've come up with a solution that can make everybody happy. Here's how I analyze it. I think there are two objections to just simply letting them all in. Let them all in. I think there's two objections to that. I think one of them is legitimate and one of them is illegitimate. Let me start with the illegitimate one. The illegitimate objection to immigration is this, in my opinion. Oh, these people, they don't speak English and they don't celebrate our holidays. And they celebrate all this other stuff, and they're changing the culture, and they're blah, 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 blah. I call that racism. I just call that racism. So if your objection to immigration is just, we don't want all those nasty brown people here, okay, let's identify what it is. You're a racist. You're a non-Hispanic racist. You're racist against Hispanic people. But I would also say to those people, hey man, don't worry about that stuff. You don't have to hit people over the head to turn them into patriotic Americans. All you got to do is take America and turn America back into the land of the free. And see people who come here and pursue their happiness, they love America just because America's awesome. You don't have to force them to stand there and either do this or sing songs about the land of the free or have an Allegiance Day or any of that crap. How do I know that? Because the people who came here in the late 1800s and early 1900s, they love this country. Because they came here from a horrible, poor place, they pursued their happiness, and they did well. Just like most of these illegal Mexicans who come here. How do I know? Because I've represented a ton of them. I like to represent the illegal Mexicans because I find them to be great patriotic Americans. They come here for the purpose of improving their lives, and they love America. So, my response to that particular, the racism objection, tough shit. Don't be a racist. You don't have a right to be. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to trade with them. You don't even have to like them. But you don't get to exclude them because you're a racist. That's my response to that. There is a legitimate objection to that, and I hear it all the time. It's the same type of objection that I run into with the drug war. I ran into it the other day. I was talking with one of the big muckety-mucks in the Yavapai County Attorney's Office who's prosecuting or persecuting a drug user up in Yavapai County because he's a drug user. I'm talking to him about the drug war, and we're going round and round. And finally he says to me this, he says, look, Mark, I could agree with you on that whole drug war thing. I really could. I kind of get where you're coming from. But you know, we live in this cradle-to-grave welfare state. And now we got Obamacare. And if people want to go and use methamphetamine, shoot meth into their veins, fine. But I don't want to pay for their medical bills. I don't want to be responsible for them. My response to that is, I understand. I don't want to be responsible for them, or you, or anybody else for that matter. I don't think anybody has a right to live at the expense of anybody else. This is another great freedom concept, right? If you want to help them, you can. If you don't have to. That's what freedom's about. You may not like how other people choose to spend their money, but tough shit. But he has a good point. My response back to him has been, and still is, look, okay, I understand. Why not argue for the right things? Why not say, we ought to end the welfare state and end the drug war? So, so similar objection in the immigration context. Hey, Mark, I love these guys, right? Let them all come in, but I don't want to pay for their welfare and their food stamps and their health care and anything they come across. They have a baby and now there's a problem. I don't want to pay for that stuff. And you know what? I don't want to pay for that stuff either. I'm very quick to point out, I don't feel any better if money is being stolen from me to pay for American citizens' problems either. I mean, I don't particularly care to have my money stolen from me at all. And I don't really care what they're doing with it after they take it from me. That doesn't make me feel any better that they say, Mark, you know, we're stealing your money, but we're going to use it for food stamps for a citizen. That doesn't help me. I don't feel any better. Nobody should get to live at the expense of another person. So I thought to myself, how can I solve this problem? And I came up with a solution. And I'm speaking to those of you in here who have subscribed to a legitimate objection. To those of you in here who say, oh man, I don't like immigration because we're in a welfare state and I don't want to pay for their burdens. This is I'm sort of testing the market here to see how this is going to fly before I throw it on TV on Channel 12 with Lynn Sue. Here's my take on it. To the illegal Mexicans who would like to come here to America, you have two options. Option one, become a citizen through the regular channels. Pay a bunch of money to a lawyer, wait 13 years, go through the whole thing, whatever is involved in that horrendous, miserable, regular immigration system that we have, then you can come in and salute the flag and be a citizen just like us and get screwed by your government. Or, plan B. This is my plan, and I like this one much better. You can come right away, fill out a form, we'll do a background check. If you're a man of peace, you can. If you're a man of violence, you can't, right? But if you're a man of peace, you get to come in and be a citizen right now on one condition. You must voluntarily opt for all benefits provided by the welfare state. We give you a big, huge, long list of stuff. Social Security, welfare stamps, Obamacare, blah, 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 blah. Now, you still get the pleasure of being ripped off by your government, the tax system, just like all the other American citizens, but you never get to collect on the pyramid scheme that is Social Security or food stamps or Obama or all this other stuff. It's the same policy that my great-grandfather, Max Victor, when he came in 1904, came off the boat, walked through Ellis Island, signed the manifest that I have, that declared himself to be a tin worker, and declared his business, and he walked in. Wasn't that Max Victor's deal? You get to come in here, you become an American citizen right away, you get to pursue your happiness, which he decided to raise chickens. That's all I know about the guy. Max Victor raised chickens and had a son named Sam Victor, who signed up in the armed forces and became a sergeant in the army and was proud of his service and honorably discharged. Had a son named Les Victor, who got his master's degree, who had a son named Marc Victor, who employs a bunch of people at his law firm in Chandler. I don't see anything wrong with that story. Why can't we offer all these illegals now, people who want to come across, the same deal as Max Victor? And if you don't like that deal, you can stay in Mexico, or you can go through the regular deal. But if you like that deal, sign on the dotted line, come on in, and you will not only are you not taking food stamps and welfare, but you're going to help support the pyramid scheme and bail our dumbasses out because we have allowed this moronic government to get us up to 17 trillion in debt now. So you're a contributor to that. All I want to know now is what is the objection other than the racist objection to immigration? And any reaction to the Marc Victor plan question?
When they come here, they managed to get into the government and change.
We should get
Well,
rid
so
of
do
that.
Democrats and Republicans, but, I mean, I'm not sure I'm understanding. We don't want to change, let me make sure I'm understanding the question. The current police state, Nazi-like police state that we have right now, which is racing towards socialism at a speed never seen before in the human race. We would make that. I'm not sure I understand the objection.
Yes, we do want to change that. We want all of them, everybody to follow the Constitution.
Yeah, the Constitution, I agree with that. Let me make a point about the Constitution for a moment that sometimes is lost on people who don't deal in the legal system. The Constitution, much like the government, isn't really a real thing. We pretend it is, right? We like to pretend it's a real thing. Because, at the end of the day, there is a piece of paper with words on it that says things. We say things like, we need to get back to the Constitution. But that doesn't really mean anything. It's sort of gobbledygook. And let me give you an example of the kind of gobbledygook it is. One of our sacred principles of the Constitution, and I know about this because I talk about it almost every day as a lawyer for the last almost 20 years, is the Fourth Amendment, right? Absolutely. You got a right to be free at all times and in all cases from unreasonable searches and seizures. That's it. That is your right. You will not be subject to unreasonable searches and seizures. Unless, of course, and then, of course, no warrants shall issue unless there's probable cause. That's a great protection. Sounds like a fantastic protection. The problem with that is rather obvious at this point. Who gets to decide what's unreasonable? Well, the government does, of course, and the government has pretty much decided that almost anything the government wants to do is reasonable. You don't get to decide what's unreasonable. The government does. And the way it's pretty much shaken out, if you've taken a peek at the drug war, anything they want to do, with very, very few exceptions around the edges, is reasonable. In fact, we just saw, and this is my original beef with the people, which is where our problem is, what happened up in my home state of Massachusetts. I mean, Arizona's my home state now, but I'm from Massachusetts. I lived there for 21 years. And I watched, under the hysteria of terrorism, we have the terrorism exception now to everything there is about America. There's the terrorism exception. But the second the terrorist thing was thrown out there, we're looking for one 19-year-old kid is on the loose, a terrorist. And we had literally military-looking police with armored vehicles and big weapons rolling down the streets of Watertown, where my sister used to live. Not only rolling down the streets, but platoons. I'm a former Marine. I use intentionally the military term platoon. Platoons of military armored looking police coming to the front doors of citizens with AR-15s sticking in their faces, knocking on the door, forcing people to get out of their houses, searching them, and then going through their home to search.
Who are the real terrorists?
That's a good question. And not only that, as outrageous as that is, that's not nearly as outrageous as the reaction to that. That was the reaction. The people up there in Watertown thought that was okay because they were looking for a terrorist. And where was the Fourth Amendment in all of this?
Out the window.
Where was the constitutional rights in all of this? They didn't exist. They just didn't exist. And so...
When you needed it the most.
Yeah. And so the Constitution is just a collection of words. There is nothing, and let me repeat, there is nothing that the government can't do. There is nothing that the Constitution restrains the government from doing that the government wants to do. I mean, in case you didn't know, they took this concept here that the states should not erect trade barriers against the states. We call it the Interstate Commerce Clause. Interstate Commerce Clause, right? For the purpose of regulating interstate commerce. We're trying to get a country going here. We don't want Massachusetts erecting tariffs against Rhode Island and vice versa. Let's have a big free trade zone. Free trade is great. It's compatible with freedom, and it's an American principle. It actually could lead to world peace, in my view. So that they put that in there as a power of Congress in Article 1, Section 8. What's that turned into? If you're smoking a joint in your backyard in California, consistent with California law, a joint that you grew on your property and you're smoking it there, and you're not selling it, it's not even leaving your property, you can be hauled into federal court, prosecuted, and convicted of under federal law, because what you're doing is interfering with interstate commerce, and so the federal government's got the power to run a drug war. What? The federal government is running a drug war based on the Commerce Clause in Article 1, Section 8. And nobody's even caring about this, despite the fact that when they ran the alcohol drug war, at least they were honest enough to stick a constitutional amendment up there. At least they said, look, we don't pretend to have the power to run an alcohol war. At least everybody sees we don't have that kind of power in Article 1. Let's pass an amendment, see how that works out, and we'll learn from that, right? Maybe not. Question.
Mention tomorrow, Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, shut up.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. Questions over here.
They don't even do Cinco de Mayo in Mexico. What the hell do we got here for?
Who's coming here taking our jobs? Well, look, first let me say this. Let me say this about that. Here's my take on it.
Watch out, Mark.
Watch out for what?
Illegal, take your job.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you were raised in America and you are at risk of losing your job from some dude who just came across the border, maybe went through 5th grade in the Mexican educational system, can't even speak English, or if they can, it's sort of kitchen. When I'm a kitchen Spanish, they're kitchen English. They can say hi, how are you, kind of thing. If that person is a real threat to your job, you get a new job. I mean, really, really. But in an economic sense, that doesn't bother me a bit.
They get
Because
into
illegal, well, good for them.
No.
Illegal immigrants help the economy. They help the economy. The reason they help the economy, they haven't ruined the economy. They help our economy. And actually, this can be shown with conclusive evidence, economically speaking. One of the reasons we know that is because one of the things we know about illegal Mexicans, they eat food, right? And they buy clothing, and they spend money. When they are involved in commerce, they spend money, and they help other Americans. Not only that, if they take your job and do it for less money, they also help the economy, because now I can get their labor at less expensive prices, which is why we've had pretty good prices for homes here in Arizona for a long time. Because before we ran off all the illegals with the last set of lunatics we had here in Arizona, we had a good workforce at a reasonable price. So we got good labor. Now we have a labor shortage. If you talk to any of the builders, and Tracy and I are building a home right now, and so we've had occasion to talk to them, and they've said, hey, all our labor pool has been driven off. We got to spend more money for labor right now. The bottom line is this. The economy is not a fixed pie. We can grow the pie. There's enough for everybody. We can create wealth. That's how capitalism works. Don't be afraid of immigrants coming here. That's what America's always been about. Embrace them. Question.
To me, it's more of a problem of the lack of character of the government employees, the administrators, stuff like that. It's my understanding there's a Supreme Court decision that says the president cannot pick and choose what laws he's going to enforce. I think it had to do with Chicago, but I'm not sure. And so the president can't say, I will enforce or won't enforce the immigration laws or this law or that law. So to me, we got all these people running around, there's more and more of them. They don't, the hell with the Constitution, they'll make up their own rules. And I'm thinking, what about treason and sedition, whatever those words are about? Isn't that having an impact on this? Can't they be...
I don't know. You know, to me, this is really
they
much...
obviously commit treason, sedition, and stuff like that, but nobody says anything.
To me, for those of you who have this animosity towards these guys coming here, I wish you could come with me someday. I wish you could come with me someday to come meet with these guys who come to America. It breaks my heart. It really does. When these guys, I meet with them all the time. I met with one last week, an illegal guy who's getting deported back to Mexico, who who's spending 3 years in prison before. And to me, it's inhumane and not compassionate and un-American to support stuff like that. And it will break your heart if you talk to a guy like this, because all they wanted was to come here, work hard, support they want the same things that all other human beings around want. They want to improve their lives. They want the lives of their kids to be improved. And when they look me in the eye, and they looked at America, they looked sort of north of the border with this, wow, this great country, this bastion of freedom, and they look at me in the eye and they say, I don't want to come back to America anymore. I think I've had enough. I say, I'm just embarrassed as an American. I'm disgusted as an American that we would treat people who come to the United States to do exactly what all of our families did years ago. To me, is absolutely disgusting and un-American. And I hope every single one of them gets to come here and become citizens, and they take all of those low-paying jobs. Question over here.
I don't have a question, but I disagree with you entirely. As a housewife, as far as cutting the costs, like you say, because we have cheap labor, not only as I go to the store and I pay $2 to $5 a pound for tomatoes, and $5 a pound for asparagus, and I mean, I've watched the prices go up for the last 30 years, and then on top of that, I'm paying for their welfare and the cost of their medical when they come over here. And yes, I think inhumanity is important. I don't think that we should be inhumane. I don't think that they should be kept in prisons for long periods of time or with unreasonable and have unreasonable situations created for them. Yes, put them in jail for a week, declare that they're no good, and get them out of this country because they're sucking off of us.
Well, look,
and the prices are not going down because
let me start with some agreement.
The prices are not going down because of their cheap labor.
Let me go as far as I can with some agreement first. Let me say this. I can agree with you on the fact that they shouldn't get any welfare at all. Nobody should get any welfare, like I've said. I mean, it doesn't make me any happier that American citizens are in my pocket either. If I want to help them, I will, but it shouldn't be a function of government. To me, that's un-American. But that's kind of as far as our agreement goes. I mean, I would say the price of lettuce or the price of asparagus, in a free market, it'll be the market price that prevails. And I like the market price.
Keep the price down, are they?
Well, their job is not to keep the price down. Their job is to pursue their own happiness.
Let do it in their own land.
I get to make a comment because I can.
Hail to the Grand Poobah of the Arizona Breakfast Club. Don't make it too really brown and then finish off fast.
You gotta cut him off, man.
I know, it's a dangerous thing.
I could have been done already.
No, who believes that?
All right, you do.
This is what I mean when I say waiting for the older generation to just die off. I don't want to be insulted. I just want you to understand. I want you, my turn. I want you to put your.
In love.
Did that? I can yell really loud. You have to understand this is what. Because you look at the wrong things, you've been conditioned that way. The Generation X, let me explain it to you, and you'll understand from my perspective. It's because Generation X, they keep talking about my children, my grandchildren, these guys come up, they don't recognize borders. They don't even recognize Federal Reserve notes. They don't recognize a difference in culture, or religion, or even language. We translate Freedom's Phoenix into 39 languages. We do in real time during Arab Spring. You don't want Pharaoh number 300, to rule you. You own yourself. We barter and exchange ideas and merchandise and labor and services and stuff, raw material, with individuals. You keep thinking, as much as you'll scream against collectivism, you'll scream against their system is worse than our system and we should protect our system against their system, you're a system worshiper. And the thing that's happened is Generation X, they have grown up with the internet and the immediate 3 months on a Facebook account, and they realize that the person they've been talking to live, kind of translated like caveman talk, kind of funny, was a 13-year-old kid in Iran. I buy most of my chemicals for my experiments and everything from Estonia.
because land of the free won't sell them to us, because every time somebody does a drug raid and they got a chemical, you're a domestic terrorist, or you got a beaker, you're a meth lab, and they go to the company that sold it to you and say, we want all your paperwork and everybody has ever bought anything from you, and you kill innovation. Which is why we're going to the hackerspace this afternoon of a bunch of 20-something-year-olds that are hand-building their own electron microscope. And what happens if she's Mexican? Do you think these young guys care? You have to understand, this is exactly what I mean. I'm waiting for you to die off. Because it's not as an individual, it's an entire generational conditioning that I don't even blame you. It's not your fault. You were conditioned this way. You thought was the norm. You thought that's what made you good. You thought that's what made you American. You thought you forgot what America was about. The poster, I'll tell us one last thing. You remember the cover of our, like 5 months ago, a cover of our magazine had my lab in it, and the pretty girl, instead of me, standing there doing whatever, all her lab equipment was there. It was a cover of Popular Science, October 1920, done by Norman Rockwell, and it had an inventor at his workbench. The whole point was, quit waiting. Get to your workbench in your garage. Make it yourself. We're going. We're at noon today. Mason, right here. It's happening right now. And I guarantee you, they don't give two shits about where you came from. These guys are using Bitcoin, that is international currency, that has no taxation. That's why they're freaking out about it. That's why they're trying to suppress it. What happened 2 days ago? We had, in 2007, we did a legislation to provide gold, silver, and copper for our centennial in 2012. Karen Johnson did that. Al Gamla and I wrote that legislation. A lot of people didn't know that. It gets in, it passes, it goes. Then we have it, oh yeah, gold, silver, and copper tender, man, we do it. Pass the Senate, pass the House. We're going to have gold, silver, copper as legal tender in the state of Arizona.
Yes.
Jan Brewer vetoed it Thursday. Because the system doesn't benefit enough. The system can't tax it. The system worshipers, not individual liberty, freedom oriented. And part of that comes to human beings. There is no classification. They don't recognize a border. They don't recognize the checkpoints. How many times have we had? I did a debate on air with Frosty Woolridge, Rights for Freedom's Phoenix. Man, got to ship all brown people back. Everybody, we got too many people to begin with. We need to get down and, cut down and too many environmental whatever. Okay? And I'm going, yeah, who gets to decide? How is this decided? And willing, needs, wants, desires, demands, as SB 1070 did, we want to have our America card and present it proudly whenever asked. If they don't have it, they got to go. And you're willing to give up your Americanism so that you get your card-carrying America badge. I'm just waiting. It'll be another decade or 2, 3. By the time my kids are starting to have their own children, the entire replacement of this philosophy is coming with Generation Next. And they don't worship the government the way you do.
That's my brother right there. Thanks, Ernie. Now look, the last thing I'm going to say on immigration, because I want to move to another area to piss people off, is let's just forget about the government for a second, and let's just treat people as individuals. Is this guy trespassing on me? No? Well, I got nothing to say about it, man. Until he's trespassing on me, leave him alone. Okay, that's it. Who cares? If they're trespassing on somebody, let's deal with that. The other thing that I got rattling around in my head that I might be able to annoy some people here and get you fired up on is I want to leave you with a piece of good news. I'll make it short. I really am excited about the fact that this whole drug war is moving in the right direction. It's gonna die, and I hate it. It's hard to think of a more un-American, anti-freedom kind of thing than the war that the government is waging against peaceful Americans. That's the war right now. And the reason I think that's going to die, I might be a little too optimistic, but just look at the facts. 20 years ago when I started practicing law, if you told me people are going to be smoking marijuana in Arizona under the law legally, I would have told you you're crazy. But we got about 18 states right now that have medical marijuana, and 2 states that have become Amsterdam.
Yeah!
There's There are 2 states right there that in the land of the free have adopted a freedom that we haven't seen since a long time. 2 states, Colorado and I think it's Washington now, have legalized marijuana for recreational purposes. What is that going to do besides make a lot of pot smokers happy? It's going to bring now the people of freedom a good opportunity to point out what does not happen. The sky isn't going to fall. More people aren't going to start smoking marijuana. Life isn't going to be horrible. It's going to be just like it is in Amsterdam, which is if you don't want to smoke marijuana, you don't, and everything else goes along just fine, and you wouldn't even know people are smoking marijuana. And by definition, and there is no way around this, by definition, crime is going to fall. Because people who were smoking marijuana before are criminals. Now we've redefined it as a non-crime, and now crime is less, just by definition. And by just lowering the crime rate like that, we need less law enforcement, we need less cages to cage our fellow Americans. I mean, here in the land of the free, and I say this very sarcastically because we are absolutely not the land of the free. Because you cannot be the land of the free, at the same time you are the land of the incarcerated. And we, in case you don't know, we incarcerate way more people than any other country on the face of the planet, even by percentage of our population. Not just raw numbers, by percentage. So, for those of you who smoke weed, great. I'm not talking to you on this one because if you understand already, it doesn't matter. It's for the people who don't smoke marijuana. It's for those people. You got to come to grips with the freedom notion that other people may want to do things with their bodies that you don't do with yours. And if you can't get your brain around the notion that people have a right to be peaceful with their own body, you are not in the freedom crowd. You are part of the problem.
Yeah, right.
For the pot smokers. The only thing I do the normal groups a lot, National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I've been on their legal committee as long as I've been a lawyer, their national legal committee. What I say to the pot smokers, and I am really hard on them, because it ain't about smoking pot. It ain't about smoking pot. It's about the right to control your own body. And us as freedom people, if we can start making that argument, take it away from marijuana is not dangerous, marijuana is not harmful, blah, and all of the really good arguments that exist for getting it out of the black market, all of what I would call the economic consequences. Those are all great arguments, perfectly sufficient, but they're not necessary, and they're not the argument that we need to win. The argument that we need to win is that free people are in control of their own body, and whatever they want to put in their own body, whether it's marijuana or whether it's big sugary drinks that come in these big, whether it's methamphetamine, yeah, I said it, whether it's methamphetamine or cocaine or even some very dangerous prescription drug that your doctor is prescribing for you, whatever it is that you want to put in your body, if you are a competent adult, that is your business so long as you're peaceful. And we have a real shot for the first time, maybe ever, to win that argument. And the great thing about it there is if we can win that argument, if we win that argument, we win the whole ball of wax. Because that's the only argument we need to win. And that's all I got to say today. But there's 2 questions. I want to at least deal with these 2 guys. Let's go way in the back because I'm hoping that's going to be disagreement. Then we'll go to maybe I'll have 2 disagreements.
Actually, Mark, I just wanted to ask for everybody's benefit. Isn't it almost a certainty that everyone in this room, everyone in this restaurant today, is in violation of some federal law or regulation?
Oh, I think there is absolutely. Check. Let's make a quick poll to see if we have any non-criminals in here. Just one question. One question. Please raise your hand if you have never on any public road driven your vehicle 86 miles an hour or more. Raise your hand if you've never driven 86 or more on a public road.
I think so, but I'm not sure.
I think so. I don't think
1, maybe 2. All right. So on my very first question, everybody with the exception of 2 people is a criminal.
In Arizona.
In Arizona, whether you got caught or not. So it's absolutely true. And after 20 years of defending people in criminal law, And by the way, we do personal injury now as well. But after 20 years of doing criminal law, I don't know all the criminal laws. I don't know, and neither do you. I had someone come in my office years ago. It are a set of criminal offenses that say you allow your dog to recklessly chase, bark at, bite, or injure a cow. You are causing injury to the cow. You are committing a crime. And by the way, just so you know where we are at in America, I took the case. She had almost no money. I took the case. It was in Seligman Justice Court. I drove all the way up to Seligman for a trial because they wouldn't settle it. But I asked them, what is the injury to the cow? Did the dogs ever bite the cow? They said, no. You know what the response back was from the prosecutor? Stress. I do not. This is a real case. I took this to trial. They had an expert on the stand. It's stress of a cow, and I cross-examined this numbskull, and the cow was stressed. So did you ask him questions? Did you give him a psychological evaluation or something? What does it look like? He said, well, he says, it's on the record if you want. You could probably still pull it. It was years ago, but he says, well, the cow will open his mouth and his tongue will be hanging out of his mouth. I said, well, does he do the same thing when he's thirsty? He says, well, he could. So I said, how do you tell the difference between if he's stressed or if he's thirsty? He said, well, I don't know. He could be thirsty, could be stressed. Here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. Were the cows in this case hanging their tongues out of their mouth? Well, I didn't examine those cows. Well, so you can't even say that the cows in this case were stressed or were hanging their tongues out of their mouth or were even thirsty or anything about them, right? He says, well, I guess you're right. It was one of the Rule 20 cases I got. Rule 20 is at the end of the state's case, I stand up and say, Judge, these guys didn't even make a case. I shouldn't have to do squat. You should enter a judgment of acquittal right now, this second, say it's over and send my guy out of the courtroom. That's exactly what the judge did. I was so pissed off, I said, bring the judge back out. The judge came back out. I said, Judge, I want an award of attorney's fees against the Yavapai County Attorney's Office for bringing such a stupid case against an American citizen, costing her something to hire me to come up here to do this. You know what he said to me? You know, Mr. Victor, it's the kind of case I would consider that, but there, as you know, Mr. Victor, there is no provision that allows for attorney's fees in a criminal case. So just always keep in mind one thing, and I'll leave you with this thought. It's the king who makes all the rules. It ain't you. It's the king who makes all of the rules. And guess what kind of rules the king makes? Rules to protect the king. I'm dealing with that in the baseline case right now because there are immunity statutes. If you don't know about the baseline killer case, you have to ask me another time. There are immunity statutes in cases where you could be sued, but the government can't be sued for screwing up because they are immune, just like the judges and the prosecutors. Thank you very much. One more.
It's my understanding in your mind, I think, that we let them in here because we love them. We love them. And then they kill your whole citizens of Massachusetts because you're stupid ignorant. It's a religious value.
Religion's a huge problem in the United States. I agree with that. I agree with your point that faith-based beliefs is a huge problem. Oh, it's not your religion. Oh, who would have guessed that your religion is the one true religion and everyone else's religion is wrong? I never would have guessed that. I know you're the one true religion. I get it. Okay, all right. Incidentally, I know many peaceful Muslims. I'm friends with several peaceful Muslims, even libertarian Muslims. And I also, right, it can't possibly be true. I'm friends with peaceful Muslims, and I also happen to know peaceful meth users. In response to your first a crime against somebody, you should be prosecuted for that. I don't care if you being on meth is not an issue. There are peaceful meth users and there are not peaceful meth users. But I would point out the issue is much bigger because if you go to Amsterdam and try to buy meth, they don't even know what it is. Meth is a substitute for other drugs. Just like if you could snap your fingers and eradicate all the meth from the planet, do you think the meth users are going to say, ah, shucks, you know, I really like meth, and I was so addicted to meth, but you know, I'm gonna just live a clean and sober life? Or do you think that they might find some other drug to get their fix? That's the symptom of the problem. That's the symptom. It's really, meth use is a really, really, really bad thing. It's a medical problem. If they commit crimes, we'll deal with them that way. And finally, man, if you could pile up the number of crimes committed by violent crimes committed by American citizens born here in this country versus the number of crimes committed by illegal, scary illegals, you would find that, man, if we could just get the crimes down to the level that the illegals were committing, we'd be living in a pretty damn safe society. And that's the truth, because I'm in the trenches every day, and I'm here to tell you, and especially when you slam in the statistics, that the most of the crimes that these illegals commit is the crime of being here. That's the crime I see most often. I'm not saying they never commit violent crimes. Sometimes they do. But if you think that American citizens don't commit violent crimes, you are completely out to lunch. Thank you.
Well, at least it wasn't boring.
No more time for questions.
You know, the thing is, when I used that, I did, you know, it started to permeate, you know, the Lovolution. You know, a lot of people like Adam Kokesh, you know, would use the phrase, you know, waiting for the older generation to die off and all that kind of stuff and everything. And he doesn't really say it as a support. He just accuses me of saying it. That's not really true. We have a lot of older, more libertarian-oriented people that we work with a lot. What I'm really saying is that philosophy. And it's most ingrained there. And it's programming. Eugene, seriously. And it's most ingrained in a generational aspect because that's when it was absorbed the most. That's when it meant something. That's when it could be done. It's when you had the government licensing of media. You had the government licensed television, radio stations. You had the government propaganda. It was reporting by government handout. It was, you know, what was the norm? What is, you know, it came from them. And then it was mandatory youth indoctrination camps, aka the public government school system or whatever. You know, so I understand it. The thing is that 20 years ago, when I would come here and I'd speak and I got to meet all you guys, and some of you have been here since forever, you know, a lot of you guys, you know, this is, you know, what was it, Les, you know, and Frank, John, I mean, I'm like, wow. You know, there's been a lot of people, they've seen my evolution, but I'm not saying anything any different than I was back then. What I recognized is that there was a massive support of the team. Love it or leave it, right or wrong, my country, 'tis the thee, whatever, and it didn't matter how egregious the threat on our freedoms was. Didn't matter.
Right on.
The red, white, and blue hat, it must be good. I really saw what was going on in 1996. Let me tell you what happened. You'll understand my perspective. Pat Buchanan was running for president. This is when, you know, Karen Johnson really became, and I see how this election, you know, fraud stuff is going and how we were able to write legislation with that and the Gutenkauf brothers and how we did and all this kind of stuff. The state chair for Buchanan came up a lot of election stuff. But I remember Buchanan came to the state one time. He's at the Crossroads Gun Show, and he had the front page of the Arizona Republic or Valiant State Peace section or something, and he's holding up a deer rifle with a scope. I'm a Second Amendment guy. Now, if you're not holding up a black detachable magazine pistol grip battle rifle, don't be telling me how Second Amendment you are, okay? So, but he's holding that up, and he's going, you know, doing that, and we had SAFE, Second Amendment is for everyone. His campaign came to us and met with us at our workshop, okay? They came in, why aren't you supporting Pat Buchanan? He got a picture, he's holding a gun. You should be Second Amendment. No, we're a freedom organization. Second Amendment just happens to be one of the freedoms. We're for, you know, legalizing drugs and letting illegal in. We're freedom. Oh, no, they didn't like that, okay? But what they were saying on the immigration issue, and this came from Pat Buchanan, should know better, and I think he's starting to change a little bit, but he was going, look at all of the benefits that we give and mandated by the courts. It's a liberal court systems, the liberal judges, you remember him saying that? That are mandating that we give all these benefits and health care and free school and welfare and everything to all these illegal immigrants. And I'm thinking, they don't understand the history, the promise of, they don't get it. And I can sit here and talk for years, and they never will. I have to wait for that to die off. I have to wait for, someone like Ron Paul. I have to wait for the internet. I have to wait for video to start hitting. See you guys later. Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Mark. We have to control on these people and only give these benefits that we took from people at the point of a gun to American citizens. Well, of course, as a libertarian activist, we knew that there was no, you're not going to get the media, you're not going to get the attention, you're not going to have a long enough, you're not going to have a large enough crowd even run for office to be able to have the platform to be able to tell this, give your perspective. We knew that when video started hitting the internet, which happened in the summer of '05, that was the time that we were going to be able to have a voice. And that's when Freedom's Phoenix was born. Even though 10 years before, we had the concept, we were waiting on video to hit. All of a sudden, the big numbers they're talking about in the media, you add up MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, PBS, all of it, maybe in a week's time, 10 million people. Boston Massacre, maybe 20 million. Out of 350 million. How many young kids have a Facebook account? It's 700 and something million last time I even looked around the world. It's getting into the billions now. They're freaked out when you hit 1 million. You don't understand what's happening. Our culture is not our laws or the Constitution. It is how if we are or are not excellent to each other. And that's what we're going to try and focus on. Not the partisan stuff. We're not going to try and make libertarians out of the permaculture crowd. We're not going to try and make libertarians out of the Tea Party, whatever. We're just going to try and make good Americans out of them. What it really meant. What it was that we offered. The promise. When Pat Buchanan did this, I looked back and I remember because I've argued before the Ninth Circuit myself. I'm not even an attorney. I've been in the Ninth Circuit more and more, okay? And the thing is that it was because I challenged election, a dozen lawsuits, 3 lawsuits for the Supreme Court, moral argument, blah, 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 because I get the government number, you get press, you get, some coverage, and that was our way. But now we don't need to do that. Internet bypass all that too. What I understood, there was a case right after when they did the 13th and 14th Amendment. The 13th Amendment, there would be no involuntary servitude. And they defined involuntary servitude, and we used this in a lawsuit we did to do away with mandatory audience. Because you were mandating that someone enter into a third-party contract with a private company. 13th Amendment. And we were screaming at the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons. I had Jay Orion on my show, and I said, if you guys really want to fix this, you really want to go after it, go to the original congressional argument that they did when they were arguing why they're doing the 13th Amendment, and it was because they had freed slaves or cotton in their own wagon, doing it without being, belonging to some plantation owner. So they go, no. We got these Jim Crow laws, okay? We have a law that if you don't have a $500 bond, might as well have been $1 billion back then, a $500 bond, in case you get like an accident or something, you can't use the roads commercially. So guess what? You had to be an employee of a plantation. You couldn't be a self-contracting guy. It was mandatory auto insurance. So we go, it's keep the Negroes on the plantation. I mean, that's what this stuff is. It's all mandated third-party contracts. You can't, involuntary servitude was defined as you can't force somebody into a third-party contract. Now, you can do all kinds of regulation by a company. We did that with the emissions testing here in Arizona. They had to bring it kind of back into the government control. But they were going against the idea that they were making me go to a company, it was a private company that made money on me them testing my exhaust pipe. That's 13th Amendment violation. You're forcing me into a third-party contract. Damn it, we hate the libertarians. See my point?
So now it's like a D&D thing? The exhaust?
Yeah, no, they kind of change. It's like the bus system. Can you wear a gun on public transportation? Well, damn it, we got to make it kind of a privatized, licensed, transfer, private kind of, I don't know how far we got to go so you can't. I mean, it's just, Constitution's Constitution, they don't care. You know, that obligates me. You know, I have to be, you know, Sieg Heil to this system, but all the Congress shall make no law stuff, they ignore. At what point does this document become null and void? When does that happen? When is it void? So in my mind, you know, I deal with culture, Pat Buchanan. As they're talking to us, they're trying to wrap, yeah, but he's pro-Second Amendment. Well, he's not a freedom guy. I mean, we can't do it because of the immigration thing. They're like, what the hell does immigration have to do with the Second Amendment? Well, we don't look at it that way. We're all about freedom. You know, do you own your body or not? I don't give a crap how bad the new drug day law, whatever they come up with. That's not the point. And if you got freedom, they probably won't come up with that drug anyway. And if they do, it's some CIA government thing to make you work harder, not ask questions. You know? So, I mean, seriously. So, you always got these unintended consequences. What it was, the first case that used the 14th Amendment. Let me tell you this story and you'll understand. It was called Yickwo versus Hopkins. And it was out of San Francisco. You know, ancient Chinese laundry secret. You guys ever hear about that? The Chinese laundries and so on? The Emperor of China, you know, here, I got like plenty of people here, you can have a bunch of them, you know. So they came and worked on the railroads and did whatever, just slave labor, you know, they were just, you know, shorter black people. I mean, you know, they were seen as, you know, 15th class citizens along with slaves. I mean, they're just more labor. You know, slavery was kind of, you know, was outlawed, so we'll just bring over a bunch of Chinese. I mean, they didn't see people as human beings, but the Constitution did. It never said citizens. It says people, individuals. You know, there's no special classification. In 2003, when I first started doing radio, going into Iraq, you had this guy named Walker that became radicalized Muslim out of America here, whatever. But he did it the right way. I'm for jihad, and I want to support the Taliban and their, you know, support of Islam and doing whatever. You know what? Instead of lobbying my government, making you pay for it, forcing you at the point of a gun to fund my whatever, and we go invade stuff, I'm going to get off my lazy ass, and I'm going to go over there myself. Perfectly fine. Freedom. Goes over to Afghanistan fighting, all of a sudden Americans come. Okay? 9/11 happens, Americans come, all of a sudden they got this long bearded whatever guy wrapped in a towel sitting in their prison, the guy speaks English, you all suck. They go, what the hell is that? Prisoner of war? Traitor? What is he? How do you put it? Does he get a trial? So what did the Bush administration do? They came up with the idea of an enemy combatant. And that we can strip them of their citizenship. Why? Because they're introducing the concept that you didn't have human rights because you could fog a mirror. You had protections of the U.S. Constitution because you're a card-carrying American. And if they could strip your American from you, then you didn't have those constitutional rights anymore. Anybody can be stripped now. Anybody can be targeted and assassinated. Right on. Anybody, I could see it coming. It was Nazi Germany all over. I'm screaming on the radio. We're talking about, you know, Rumsfeld, Nashcrout, Ridge, and all these guys were going, look, you guys, all you Americans, ooh, got to get them terrorists. And we don't want to read in their Miranda rights. Rights, they don't have any rights because they blah, 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 whatever. The second you strip, when you need it the most, the second you go down this road that they don't get it, you don't have it. It's done. Whenever you become a threat to the man, you're a threat. And you're stripped of all the protections that you're supposed to. We're never going to find out what really happens on this stuff. Why? Because the people, the process by which we're supposed to get to the truth is totally short-circuited. And it started way back then, over 10 years ago. I can see it coming. Yickwo versus Hopkins. Gets up. They were working on the railroad during the day. Afterwards, at night, all these industrious, okay, it wasn't legal or illegal back then, it's whether they're going to get protected by the Constitution or not. And they were doing Chinese laundries, washing everybody's laundry in San Francisco. Well, there were, you know, the business owners there, the guys that owned the laundries, that wanted to employ them, you know, the black people, they passed a law, said it is illegal for Chinese to operate a laundry at night. Yickwo didn't get that memo, okay? Didn't care. He's doing all this, he's washing laundry, boom, they arrest him, put him in jail. It just passed the 14th Amendment. You can't give special rights or privileges that don't equally apply to everybody. the law is applied equally. See you later, Eugene. You have the laws applied equally. They go, no, 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 hell no. He's not American. He's a Chinese citizen. He is a subject of the Emperor of China. You cannot give him equal access under our Constitution. It's not supposed to be for that. It's supposed to be for Americans.
We the people.
But the Constitution never said that. Any law that you apply applies equally to everybody because they can fog a mirror. Well, now I could see. Now we're talking, 1860 whatever here. 1870s around in there. They're doing this case. Now you go 120, 30 years later, and they're saying, doing the same concept and arguing and saying we can strip Americans of their citizenship, thereby stripping them of their constitutional protections and human rights. Was that really what it was? No. That was never what America was about. So the case came down is that, no, you can't give special rights or privileges that apply to anybody. It doesn't say anything about citizenship. It's a human being. So when Pat Buchanan brought the liberal judges that were given access to all this stuff, an illegal immigrant, might as well have been a Chinese laborer, okay? He comes in, he pays his taxes, he goes to the grocery store, he's charged sales tax on whatever, he got a job, he does all this and everything, and then they are recruited by the government, especially Democrats, and getting their support of whatever, and they say, oh, you need to be on WIC, and you need this kind of, food stamps, and they're sitting there, lining them up at the apartment buildings and getting them on the system for whatever support they think they can get out of that. So they get, do this, and what is Pat Buchanan saying? You can't equally apply the law to everyone unless they're a U.S. citizen. So what am I thinking? Yickel versus Hopkins. The problem is not the application of welfare, it's the welfare. See, they missed the whole thing. They're already justifying the fact that we're going to steal you and give to this family that just moved in whatever from Appalachia or Montana or I need or I want. That's okay. And the vast majority of the wealth that's going to them anyway. No, what they want to get in your head is this concept, or are you a good card-carrying Nazi/American? Are you willing, or you got with your card, you should be willing to go through the checkpoint and say. So what happens? A couple years ago, I was down in Yuma giving a speech. And we had 2 days. We had to decide we were going to stay that night. Donna couldn't stay. So the day before, drive all the way to Yuma and back. Don and I go down there, and we come back, go through the Yuma checkpoint. You an American citizen? What country are you born? Are you American? Donna's like, U.S. citizen. He goes, yeah, I guess. So the next day I go down, and I'm coming back. I know I'm going through that same checkpoint. So I took you go Ernest Hancock, do a Google search, or on YouTube, and you'll see this 6-minute video I did. And I put the camera up on the dash, and I go, we're going to try this. I'm dressed like this. We're going to try something. Why would they ask that? Does Osama bin Laden go, no, them jihadists with the, seriously, why do they even do that? Okay? It's a legal question. They're wanting you to put you under their jurisdiction. I am a U.S. citizen subject to and have taken away from, and whatever, they get you in that mindset. This is what I'm trying to have die off. This is what I want to go away. This sucking you into that mindset, to the fact that Pat Buchanan can even say this stuff, and you don't even understand the history or the reason for the Constitution or the power of being a single human being and not having a card carrying, I get to have due process, which is going away anyway. You lost before you started because you don't understand. So what I did is I'm going to try something. Okay? You get up. Are you a U.S. citizen? Or where were you born? Are you U.S. citizen? I said, I was born in Dade City, Florida.
Born in a hospital.
Well, that was my second thing. He goes, what? I go, I was born in a hospital in Dade City, Florida. Yeah, I did the second time. And he goes,
where's Florida?
So the thing is that, what was he asking me? Am I a U.S. citizen? I don't know. I was born in Florida. Sounds like a legal question. You tell me, are you a lawyer? Or I don't know. You know what? Because what do they want? They want you to go, ooh, American. It's get you then, oh, now that you're a U.S. citizen, somehow you're under our jurisdiction for me to do an anal probe, pull in the secondary. You know, so I'm just like, I'm not helping them anymore. I was born in the United States of America. I was born there. I was doing, you know what, this citizenship thing, I don't know what the hell that means, and that's, you need me to sign something or something, I don't know. You know, what do you, and they're like, they don't want to play, because they know who I am anyway. Next, but Shelton's giving them, you know, plenty to entertain themselves. So what you're seeing is why I keep going, it's about a cultural shift. That cultural shift has already happened naturally with all these young revolutionaries that were brought in by Dr. Paul and his message. And why he was so opposed by the system. Because he put the people, the individuals, above the system the way it was supposed to be. That the system served each individual as human beings that can fog mirrors. That is what the promise was. That promise has been turned into a nightmare. And they're using, like Eric Holder come up and he says, hey man, justice is whatever the king says it is. The Commerce Clause is whatever we say it is. And this has been going on for decades. There was when they did the Commerce Clause to mandate how much you could or couldn't grow and tax and all this other stuff on food products, there was a guy, a farmer in the Midwest somewhere, or it was Plain States, that grew his own corn on his own land for his own cows. He says, screw you, that doesn't apply to me. No, you can't grow this, do this, survive the Depression, whatever. And those was back in Depression years, I think. So he goes, you can't do this. He goes, yeah, I can. No, you can't. Yeah, I can. Let's go to court. What did the federal court say? They go, because you're not buying other corn that you normally would because you're growing it here, you're interfering or affecting interstate commerce. Constitution's Constitution, man. It was the promise. That's why I showed declare your independence with Ernest Hancock. Because the Declaration of Independence said what? The only purpose of government is to defend the rights of the individual. When it stops doing that, it is your right, it's your duty to alter or abolish. That's what they were talking about. It didn't say what kind of government. It didn't say, what kind we're going to have this and that, and check and balance, all that kind of. That was a decade before. They didn't, later. They didn't even mention that. It was just how to recognize a bad government. When it's violating your rights. When they're doing, in Boston no less, black outfit, ninja outfits, going down the street, door to door, kicking in. You got to come out. Do this. I mean, are we there yet?
Yes. Yeah. There and then.
But you have to understand, so when we're very critical, Mark and I have been doing this since we were young. I mean, he's just out of law school. We met, like in the early 90s, doing all this stuff. What is it that we were advocating? Was it so we could, how many guns we can have? No. Was it about, immigrants? No. It was about freedom. Consistent freedom. The idea that I own myself. So when we send translations of philosophy of liberty into Arabic, we're sending DVDs, we're sending printed translations, we're doing all this into Alexandria, Egypt, because we had contacts there that are passing them out by the thousands to the people in Tahrir Square going, we don't want Mubarak and this and kind of another, and the next guy, we probably don't want him either, whatever. And we're trying to go, what's the core thing that we would share with them as revolutionaries here in America? What would we share? The concept that you own yourself. And that the only purpose of government is to recognize that and protect that against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That is the core. It used to be America, and it hasn't been. And the generation that's wrapping their arms and legs around the statist red, white, and blue America, I'm proud to be an American. Seriously? Or at least I know I'm what? And then, of course, what are they doing? B-2 bombers and fighters going over the Super Bowl and NASCAR. And is that to make NASCAR look better? No! It's to rub off on the government. You keep missing the point. But these young kids get it. And I'm telling you, you're going to get left behind. You're not going to understand when all the government checks stop, or it won't buy you your month's worth of Social Security, only get you a loaf of bread. You're not going to know how to, go into the new economy, which is totally off all this stuff. You're not going to understand why, Jan Brewer was using gold and silver because she can't tax it regularly. You're not going to understand why you got the guys on the streets and pointing guns at you and saying that this guy did it and that. You're not going to understand. You're going to go, yeah, America, yeah, we got that 19-year-old. But they say they're, infrared planes or what. Oh, see, look, we need more drones and so on. We got them. That's not how it happened. It was the homeowner who went out and saw blood on his wheel well getting into the boat and called them. And they go, yeah, we already knew that. Yeah. And it was outside their closed-off search area anyway. You don't hear about 3 weeks. So, I'm so don't think that I'm, against any one individual or even a generation. I'm against a perspective. That's what V for Vendetta was all about. Freedom is a perspective. Truth is a perspective. The perspective of Generation Next up and the young kids that they're starting to, right, these revolutionaries that were 13 to 22 or something in 07, 08 are now starting to have their own children. They're graduating college with a big debt, no job. They're the ones that want to learn it. You think it's the older, oh yeah, we're going to do our aquaponics and get out there and now go and Jeopardy's on. I mean, they're not going to be the ones actually. It's a young generation. They're going to do this because they know they have to.
Thank you very much.
So I want you to understand, it's not a generation because you got gray hair. It's because that generation has been brainwashed. And the solution to that is not being brainwashed. And it happened with peer-to-peer communication of a next generation that is able to communicate instantaneously with people around the world without regard to culture, religion, freaking even boundaries, nothing. They're just doing it as individuals. Because they can't, they don't understand why they can't because they already are and nobody can stop it. Thanks for coming. Something to think about.
Where's the 12 o'clock, what address, 140 East Main, or?
Go see Donna. It's, what is it?
140 West Main.
140 West Main, and it's called Heat Sink. It's downtown. They got a building there. Now, Heat Sink is just hackerspace for, these young guys. I guarantee you. Let me tell you what. I guarantee you. Electron microscope, making the whatever whiz bang. They got all kinds of stuff, and they are not even thinking of getting a permit from anybody.
Yay.
Doesn't even cross their mind. And open source. One of the guys that started this, that's making a bunch of money, from it, that's kind of supporting, he's an older guy, and he starts to teach people how to solder. Is he made a device years ago, like 7 years called TVB Gone. And it's like a remote on your keychain. Another guy made it where it just keeps pulsing. You don't even have to push a button. He wears a pendant around his neck. Whenever you go in public, in a bar, in a mall, whatever, all the TVs just start going off. Yeah, it's kind of a property right thing with a libertarian, but it is cool. What?
Can you still buy them?
Yeah. You go Google your TVB Gone.
I got them. I'll put them up on the website.
There you go.
Right, there you go.
Pat.
Ernie, regarding the Boston Marathon bomber, you said earlier that the wife of somebody was a CIA operative. The wife of who?
The uncle that came out right away and said how bad and evil when they were radicalized and just did all the line of BS. You scratch the surface and you find out he's married to a CIA op. And you just go, seriously? I mean, 3 weeks. Thanks, guys.
How come they didn't interview the dad that they interviewed over?
The dad and the mother and the aunt all said they were set up. Because for years, the FBI had been in communication with them and talking to them. And the Russian government knew what was happening because they could see that they were going to these CIA schools that were kind of radicalizing them, bringing them in. That was their communication, whatever thing. So just to be on paper, the Russian intelligence service sent the CIA and said, oh, watch out for these guys. We know these guys are going to do something. These guys right here, these guys, because they knew they were being prepped. Okay? So they go, these guys. And then they're going, oh, yeah, we knew it. Thanks. Peace out. It's all a false flag kind of thing. Okay? But what do? I see all this. I go, oh, maybe some of that will bear out and maybe some of it won't. But I'm just like, yeah, 3 weeks. That's why I always wait 3 weeks. Because they want what they want is the 24-hour news cycle. then the next 24 hours, and the next and get into 72. If they can get the first 3 days to have the put in, all the politicians get their marching orders, or whatever they're supposed to say and who they're supposed to be against, you know, then they win. But the internet has changed that. But what happens on Freedom's Phoenix? All of a sudden, right after the Boston bombing, my traffic goes like this. It dumps, even though my ranking goes down, you know, Alexa and all this kind of stuff. And the reason is because of all this stuff we were putting up counter to that, and they turned the dial on the search engines and turned down Freedom's Phoenix. I know this because they do it every time something like this happens. Then we build it back up, and we get all kinds of whatever, boom, they do it again. I just stopped paying attention to it anymore. I'm like, if I'm not getting flack, I'm not over the target. So this is something that I can see it. And especially, you know, Holder, right? Obama, when he was running for office, they had these cyber terrorists or whatever, these guys that would go around. I'll tell you when it was. You guys remember there's a big thing about how Obama speaks, and it's hypnotic, and it's getting in there, blah, blah, blah. That was a big thing. Anytime you would put something like that up, his little bloggers would invade the site. Oh, no, that's a crazy. Whoa, since when do you give a crap about Freedom's Phoenix? They were part of this little, you know, group that they had, these bloggers. When he became president, it moved into the White House, you know, into the administration under the control of Eric Holder. And the other thing that we found out on April 19th, we did, you know, the Waco anniversary and Oklahoma City bombing and all that kind of stuff. There was a guy that they had mistaken identity. They thought he was terrorist too, or for whatever reason. They beat him up, pummeling him, and he was going to be doing a television interview in Kentucky the following day, and all of a sudden he's found hanged in his cell the day before. His brother happened to be an attorney, I think out of Salt Lake City, and he goes, oh, hell no. And he kept going, finding it. Freedom of information requests, kept hammering on the government. He knew that his brother, he wanted to clear his brother's name and show that they're scumbags. And goes on and on. He uncovers all kinds of stuff. Who was the guy? And finally he did. There's a bunch of things that came out. What?
The Trinity?
Yeah, Trinity. And your name reminds me of him. So, you know, the Trinity. So this guy, I had these people that did the documentary thing on the show just, April 19th. You'll look up my show on that. You'll find it fascinating. And what they found out is that there was a policy by the government to make sure he didn't get any freedom of information, redacts all this stuff from the intelligence community, what was really going on, blah, blah, blah. And who was the head guy in charge of doing that? Eric Holder. That's minimum job requirement to become Attorney General. Janet Reno did the same thing. Janet Napolitano was the Assistant Attorney General on the Viper militia cases here in Arizona. That qualifies her to be Gestapo head. See my point? So do we embrace the hate and point it out and do and they did? Look, what? I don't have to anymore. It's overwhelming. Now I'm going to love.
All right, we having fun today, or are we?
Yeah.
I tell my kids, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. I was hoping Victor would stay here today. As I get on, I like to pull his leg once in a while. So pass it on Ernie or whatever. But the first time Victor appeared at the Breakfast Club, we were at the Beefeaters down on 7th Street and 7th Avenue or someplace down there. And, he was introduced as a criminal lawyer. And he talked about being a criminal lawyer quite often. After it was all over with, I asked him, went over that. You really want to be known as a criminal? I noticed he's changed now. He's a criminal defense lawyer. Anyway, anybody's got some books at home that are gathering dust that you'd like to donate to, be sure to appreciate it. I'm getting down to some kind of crummy books here. Okay. The tickets I gave you are drawing for the book.
I want to be on the news. My guns are in the driveway.
Yeah, you guys got stuff to share, just bring it. But I got a bunch of stuff. I keep forgetting to bring a bunch of stuff. I'll add to the pile, so we'll go ahead and do that.
So hang on a minute, I just forgot
I tell you one thing that you can do. We can make it the Uber Super Prize. Is that it's $50 to subscribe to our magazine. I'll give one of those away, okay? So the third one we draw here will be enter. You just go right over to the Donna, and she'll enter you into the system so you can download 24 editions, 2 years worth of our magazine.
Oh.
And it gives you access to a bunch of other stuff too. So, and they'll grandfather you in for a year for this new thing that's coming. So this is going to be of value to somebody, so I'll do that. Oh yeah.
Okay, the first thing we have here to back by the cameras, there's a sign there that explains what these are. They are cell phone covers. They are radio frequency safe. And we'll talk to the gentleman back there about purchasing it. Anybody with the number 3472? 3472.
I switched it.
3472? Okay, there you go.
Could've got one from
You can wrap it around your ankle.
Yeah, you wrap it around your
ankles.
Okay, first chance at the book. 3481. 3481. Back in the corners, books on the table there, first chance. Okay, second chance at the book. 3473.
That's me.
Let me go ahead and pull one for the
I want
magazine.
easy.
You go straight back to Donna and she'll hook you up with this.
Ernie needs your glasses fixed. 3468.
There you go.
There we
Oh,
go.
you're going to be messed up for the rest of your life. Okay, one other thing before we go. How many of you know who Steve Porak is? Steve Porak owned the Desert Sky Construction. He built churches. And he retired here recently. And we just found out he's got stage 4 lung cancer. So a lot of people, oh yeah, we're going to do the chemo, this, or, you know, and all of a sudden, all his friends, everybody just started just beating the crap out of diversion therapy, which is, you know, juicing and enemas and all. It's kind of a natural, let your body do it. So what happened is he got convinced. I mean, I don't think any of his friends gave him a choice. So he's up in Sedona right now doing the treatments. And it's a whole lifestyle change, a whole nutrition thing. So he's going through that, which is like, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000. He's like, all right, I'm going to raffle off my 50 caliber with a scope. So as a fundraiser for Steve Porak's cancer treatments, you know, in a healthy way, he's doing this 50 caliber. Now, Dean, you know something about the gun? So he's going to tell you what the gun is, and we're going to set it up. Gary Sepp and some of the other friends, we're going to use Freedom's Phoenix to promote selling tickets. I think it's going to be $20 a ticket, 6 for $100. And there's going to be plenty of people getting these, because I definitely want one. Pal won one we did this before years ago, and he has a 50 caliber at home. He won with a rifle. So I got to shoot that 3 times, and I was done. Damn. So go ahead and tell us about the rifle.
So I don't know how many of you here are gun people, and I don't want to be too technical for those of you who aren't, but briefly to...
you can.
But briefly to describe this to the gun people who know what I'm talking about, this is a Ferret 50 caliber rifle, and this is the type that is an upper receiver that attaches to the very common AR-15 lower receiver. As it is, this thing is being auctioned off with a functional AR-15 lower receiver, so that if you chose to, you could also acquire AR-15 parts and have an assault rifle as well. They would be interchangeable. You'd have both items. And the upper receiver itself is valued at about $2,000. That's what you can buy them for. The lower receiver currently, in the current Mania, is going for about $300, so now you're at $2,300. The scope that is on it, a Tasco Super Sniper, which despite the fancy name is only about a $400 scope, but they are still very good scope, very good glass for the money. So that's about $400. And he has $500 worth of ammo, which is about 100 rounds. This is $5 a round for those of you who don't know, because it's so big and hard to come by. So we're close to $3,000 there in value that you would be purchasing if you won your raffle ticket. And that's what the package is. We don't have any pictures here to show you, but the thing is big and heavy, heavier and black, yeah, very good.
Because I'm black.
Heavier than most if you've ever handled any of these 50 caliber rifles. Steve showed this to me once years ago, and I could hardly lift the thing. So I mean, unless you're a healthy person, maybe it's not for you. But they're fun. And for those of you who may be scared of the power of a 50 caliber rifle and wondered whether you really want to own one or not, something you may wish to consider is that the heavier the rifle is, well then the less it's going to kick you. So as far as 50 caliber rifles go, this one's kind of a pussycat if you can get it up to the line. So that's essentially what's going to be up here in the raffle. And for $20, it's a bargain. I know several people who will buy several, so get yours now. Yeah, it does have a blast reflector, compensator, muzzle brake device on it. I last saw this thing a few years ago, but this thing really doesn't kick all that much.
Yeah, I had the pictures on it. 50 caliber. You have to understand. Let's say you're standing at Central and Camelback. You're taking out people at Central and Thomas. You know, these are long range.
Practice makes perfect.
You go a couple of miles kind of thing. Easily a mile. You know, a mile is, you know, nothing for these things. So this is why the 50 caliber is such, you know, a lot of the guys at preppers, after you got enough of everything else, and the Lone Prairie, which he does up in St. John's, he got whatever, and you get kind of up on the knoll, and you got, well, I must be able to rule all I survey. That's what a 50 caliber is for, okay? So, but it's also an investment, and it's just you know, and for some people that, you know, need a, I don't know, manhood extension, you know, you can do it this way. So, this is, so it's a good purpose. So that's why we're promoting this. Oh, easily you buy a new $4,000 or $5,000. I mean, in today's day, it could be more.
He got this at the time because it was one of the least expensive 50 caliber rifles, but to get anything comparable to it, you're going to spend $2,500 to $3,000.
I mean, just the bare bone minimum without all the whatevers. You know, these are very expensive rifles. So when Powell won his, they did a very interesting drawing. They drew 6 names, so everybody knew who that was in, and they gave each one a number, and then they rolled the dice. You know, they rolled a die, and he was numbered around where it was 4 or something, and his came up, and we just went, ah! We're all freaking out. Couldn't wait to go shoot. Went up to C.D. Tavares' place up in Morristown, and he has a big rifle range up there out in the desert. We get up and did it. I could only shoot it 3 times. But after that, I was like, you know, I like my shoulder. And but, you know, this one, and that was a lighter one. This is heavier, so it would be a lot better. But it's, I mean, heck, I mean, for $20, I'll sell the damn thing and make a few $1,000s, so I'm good there. Anything else, anybody? That's it. See you next month. Where are we meeting? We're not meeting anywhere.